All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Wholesaling the Cool Way. I'm your host today, Jasper Cool, here with my dad, Mark Cool. And on this show, we like to talk about our respective wholesaling businesses. We're both working throughout North Carolina. So if you're in the state, feel free to reach out to both of us for any tips, tricks, or if you want to work on some deals together. And typically, we like to start off the show with inspiration, which could be anything from books or podcasts or any videos or anything that we saw over the past week. So, do you want to kick us off with that? Anything you got to share?
Sure. Um, yeah, I was just the fall weather here in North Carolina has been an inspiration. We've just had these perfect days for the last few weeks where it's been chilly at night and like 70s in the day and sunny, and all the leaves are either turning color on the ground. So that's been inspiring. Fall and spring in North Carolina are my favorite seasons. Fall probably is my favorite one. So that's been an inspiration. As far as books, I think I've checked in about these the last couple podcasts, so it might not be that exciting if you're listening every week, but maybe I'm going a little bit slowly. I've got two that I'm working on. One is Buy Back Your Time with Dan Martell, which Jasper's recommended on this podcast. And it's sort of in the same vein as Who Not How by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. It's just talking about how to have a self-managing business and what the steps are and the nuts and bolts of like freeing yourself from things that bind you to the day-to-day of your business so you really can pull back and grow the business bigger and with less stress on yourself. So I've been reading that. I'm in the calendar management and perfect day section of it now, just really like mapping out my perfect day and then sharing that with my team so they can support me. It was really cool this week because I told my guy that's sort of my executive assistant slash operations manager that I was working on my perfect day, and he was like, "Oh, do you have that done?" Like he was ready to like take my perfect day and implement it into the calendar so
Yeah.
that he could protect my focus blocks. And that was cool. Just that they have a similar thing in Who Not How or in the strategic coach world, but that he already knew what I was talking about, and he was like, "Okay, great, let's get that in the calendar so we can protect your focus blocks." So
Yeah.
that's exciting because that's really the goal for me, is just to have blocks where I'm just doing focused tasks that have to do with growing the business and being a visionary, because that's how I'm wired. So I'm seeing glimpses of that. Anyway, so that's the Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, and then I'm still listening to the audiobook of Do the Right Thing by Ryan Holiday, which is a Stoic wisdom book about just living a life of integrity and being sort of true to your principles and being your own, having your own moral compass, no matter what's going on around you. And then he uses examples from from history. It's actually called Right Thing Right Now. I Do the Right Thing is a Spike Lee movie. Right Thing Right Now, good values, good character, good deeds. And
Nice.
he's got some really cool stuff. He just uses historical examples from things like the civil rights movement or slavery, or just various choices that leaders have made throughout the world, and
Mhm.
various situations that were impactful on the future of society and humankind, really,
Yeah.
and how people, chose their own moral compass no matter what was going on around them. And it's really, really cool stuff, really inspiring. So I recommend that. And yeah, that's all I've got. I haven't really been doing. I did some recreational podcast listening, which for me is pickleball and listening to Bill Simmons on basketball. I liked,
Nice.
but those aren't don't really pertain to real estate
Yeah.
investing. But yeah, that's all I've got. You got stuff, Jasper, for that this week?
Awesome. Yeah, I listened to a few things. I listened to a couple podcasts of Hermosi, which I liked. Seems like he's been pushing his podcast harder these days and like doing more episodes and stuff. And I like those because they're just like his YouTube video, but usually more bite-sized, like shorter versions. So I like those. He did one on email marketing that I really liked, especially because I'm starting to do that myself. It was really timely. And he shared some great tips on doing that, and just shared some of his best emails that have been like the best performing for him that he sent. And also, if anyone's interested in joining his thing, it's free to join his email newsletter, and I really like it. So I think you just go on acquisition.com and you can sign up for it. But basically, he sends what he calls Mosey Money Minute. And so he said that that was intentional, that he created like a name for his email so that when he puts that in the subject line, everyone knows, okay, there's an email from, Alex Ramosi. And so he talked about that in email tips, which is just like building an actual brand within your email. So that, some people, when they're doing email marketing, they really focus on making like an attention grabbing subject line. But he said, rather than doing that on every single email and trying to do that, he just wants to build a brand. And so that every time they see that in the subject line, Mosey Money Minute, they're just like, oh, it's Alex, and they click. And so I thought that was really smart. And
It's like James Clear, right? He's got the
yeah,
1, 2, 3.
exactly. Yeah. So just like having a brand on your own or within your emails so that you don't have to obsess over the subject line, and just people know when they see your name or whatever, then that's going to be a good email and it's going to have tips in there and stuff. So I thought that was really smart. I don't remember all the other tips, but there are a bunch of good tips in there if anyone's interested in email marketing and stuff. And yeah, he always drops, like he said in the email thing as well, that he doesn't have like a specific cadence. Like he's not going to do it every Monday at this specific time like James Clear does. But he said he does that because he just wants to write when he feels like he found something that he wants to share rather than having to do it every week. So that's why he doesn't do that, which I respect. But he does drop, I think, on average 2 a week. I think I've been on the list for about a month or so, and I think he drops about 2 a week. But it is just that it's like 60 seconds of actionable, like one actionable tip usually that you can try to implement in your business. And so I really like it, and it inspires me to do the same with my email letter, and hopefully, help people with quick tips like that, because I really like that format too. So that was awesome. But yeah, that, and then I've been reading or rereading The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. I really enjoy that book, and I'm going back through that. Only a couple of chapters in, and then I'm also simultaneously reading Business Secrets from the Bible, which is ironically written by a rabbi. And so,
That's funny.
yeah. And so he's writing, I mean, that's the title of it, but like within each chapter, he's kind of mentioning it more from like the Jewish perspective. But either way, I've liked that so far. Just every chapter is a different like tip or secret or whatever. And then he kind of expounds on that. So I'm liking that book. And obviously, Surrender Experiment is a great book that I've read before, but I'm enjoying going back through that. I think those are the main things. I might have had one other one, but oh, actually, yeah, I listened to Patrick but David. Overall, the podcast, I kind of didn't listen to the whole thing, but I really enjoyed one part that they talked about. He was on Graham Stephan's show, and they were talking about his ownership stake in the Yankees, and I just thought that was so cool. And obviously, he can't disclose exact numbers and stuff, but he was just saying it's a really, really good investment for him. And not only that, but obviously he's a part owner of the Yankees, which, like, how many people can say that? It's so
It was
cool.
one of his dreams. I remember listening
Yeah,
to a podcast with him where he was saying that, early on, it was one of his dreams, like, could I ever own a piece of the Yankees? And he actually made it
yeah,
happen. So, very cool.
yeah. I just think
It's
that's
not
so
cheap.
cool.
That ain't cheap to have any share of the Yankees.
No. No, so I just, yeah, I mean, that's just super inspiring to me in itself. Gary Vee wants to buy the Jets, I think, and he wanted to buy the part of the Yankees, but they were talking to him about, potentially buying a team at some point, and it is on his radar for sure. But I'm sure that's, billions and billions of dollars, but
Well,
really
Gary Vee
cool to,
happened too. He owns a pickleball team now, which turned out to be a really
yeah.
good investment for him. He owns part of the New Jersey Fives,
Oh, that's
or
cool.
maybe he owns the New Jersey Fives. I think he might be the outright owner, but
Yeah, that's cool.
I think those were like 10 million when they came out, and now they're worth like 100 million or more. So
Wow. That's
they're
crazy.
just so
Yeah.
that might leverage him into buying the Jets eventually.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Just I
No, no,
like
you're fine. I
seeing
didn't
these
know
guys
that.
go
That's
after
that's really
dreams. So
cool.
yeah,
Yeah. But yeah, I mean that's like, if I can make it really big one day, that would be my goal, is to own a basketball or a baseball team. I just think that'd be so cool. But they were talking about that, and they were talking about this one company that's like, I don't know if they're going to be successful, but they're very early stage and they're trying to make it like stocks. And so they're trying to basically buy a sports team and then like split it up into shares and sell it to like average investors, quote unquote. And so I think that would be super cool too. But
yeah,
he was sharing like a little bit, as much as he could, about the Yankees, which is where like you have to go through background checks and you have to be like approved by everyone else who's on the board and on the ownership team or whatever. And I don't think he disclosed, but I think it's under 15 people that have ownership stake in the Yankees. Like it's very tight knit. Like they're not one of these companies or these sports teams that sell, a bunch of tiny shares. Like they want the owners to be really involved in and stuff. So I thought that was really cool. But the rest of the podcast was pretty political, but I really enjoyed that part. So I just wanted to share that. But yeah, we can move on. So do you want to get us started with business check-in?
Sure. Yeah.
Let's do it.
I'm trying to get this computer so the light's not blasting my face from the window so much. We don't have high-tech studio set up here. We're just on our Apple computers. All right. So I made a couple notes. Let me see if I can find my notes here about business. Let's see. Well, I'll start with wins and gains. So I've talked about accountants with you, Jasper, and I did reach out to 7 accountants this past week who I had reached out to the previous round of hiring accountants. So this might not be for everybody at every level, but right now I need a good accountant to really help with the business. We have owner finance deals and subject twos and just need to have our books and our accounting in order every year. And I'm not going to be the guy to do it. I hate doing accounting. So
Yeah.
I did it just like you would do marketing. I reached out to 7. I had 2 people respond to me right away and a couple others sort of straggle in, and so it's a numbers game like anything else. And I've narrowed it down from 7 to 2, and I'm going to interview those people this week. So that was a step forward for me because it's something that's important, even though that's not something I love. It's still a gain.
Yeah.
And then I think I mentioned on a previous podcast, but we've had some owner finance deals where we've had delinquent payments from 4 different buyers of ours who we owner finance properties to. So my operations guy got a statement of accounts to them. We FedExed them the statement of accounts that they had to sign for, and so we're in the process of getting those people up to date. Hopefully, we don't have to foreclose on anybody. We just get them up to date and like tack the back payments on the back end of the loan and get them current again. So that's a
Mhm.
victory. And then a big victory is just sort of a trending thing that goes back to the book I checked in about with Buy Back Your Time, is that I'm noticing myself much less involved day to day with transaction coordination, disposition, acquisitions, systems, all of it. The team's really stepping up and taking ownership more and more of the departments they're working in. So it's pretty exciting because it's part of my vision to having a self-managing business and not being so involved in the day to day. And it's also a little bit scary because
Yeah.
I'm not as in touch with it. And then I have a little bit of fear of like, oh, my team's going to feel like they're not supported or I'm being a slacker or things like that. But then I have to remind myself that my job is to provide them with a secure work environment that's growing and prosperous so they have a solid job. And I'm not going to do that by calling sellers and buyers and emailing lawyers. I'm going to do it by stepping back and looking at the big picture and monitoring KPIs and improving things. So that is my job at this point. Aside from managing and mentoring people, it's an
Yeah.
interesting place to be in. Um, and then another victory. Let's see. We got the so we have a deal that we sold in June. Got under contract in June, and we sold in June with a buyer who is ready to close within 3 to 4 weeks. And it's November now. It's July, August,
Oh
September,
man.
November. So that's 5 months that he's waited. But it had an estate file that had not been filed, and then the seller ghosted on us. And then I did the threatening letter, that we've talked about, Jasper, and he came back in the fold. And then we got an estate attorney on board, which you referred me to, Jasper Terrell. And then the seller's been a little bit of a slacker doing what he needed to do for the estate attorney. So we stepped back in this past couple of weeks and we finally got these papers executed by this guy and sent him a mobile notary. And the papers are back to the estate attorney, which means now we
Nice.
probably actually close this within hopefully before the end of the year.
That's
6 months
great.
after we sold it. And the buyers, it's another one of those deals where the buyer is one of our VIP buyers. So he's very patient, but he's also messaging me every 1 to 2 weeks, like, hey, anything new on this deal? Are we going to close it
Yeah.
soon? Like, what's going on? Like, I'm ready to close anytime you guys are ready. So
Yeah.
he really wants the deal and he's like ready to do it. And he's been a trooper hanging out for 6 months. So it's a victory that we got that piece done, is that the seller had been challenging to lock down with these documents for the estate filing. And we finally have
Yeah.
those back to the attorney. So now he can get his estate piece done. And then we'll have to get, obviously, the seller to sign closing documents. But I think we'll be able to get that done and get this thing closed hopefully by the end of the year. So that's a victory.
Awesome.
Yeah, KPIs. This is a big week for contracts. We got 5 contracts this week. So
Nice.
I've been sharing that we've been ramping up our acquisitions, and it's kind of crazy for me. I'll try and keep it on the victories, but I knew we needed to do this in March, and it's just really being implemented. Hiring a
Yeah.
new second acquisitions closer, hiring an in-house cold caller, bumping up lead generation, all this stuff. But so we're seeing it this week with these KPIs of 5 contracts. We've had 5 contracts in a week before, probably once or twice in 3 years. But I think this is partly going to become the new normal because we regularly get 2 to 3 contracts per week. This is
Yeah.
5. That's a good week. And then we sold 3. So that's a big sales week for us too. And I think it's an indicator of what I was just sharing, is that we've just ramped up lead generation, and we have 2 people now who can follow up on contracts. And now we're getting more properties that are saleable in Dispo. I also attribute it to our continued push to add high quality buyers to our list. And, one of our disposition team adds a minimum of 5 buyers per day. That's part of his job. So we're adding 25 to 30 buyers per week from various sources. And I think we're seeing the results of that, getting more offers on properties.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
yeah, as far as closings, we didn't have any closed this week. We had one scheduled for Friday, but there were some things about getting a statement from the county about a lien that was owed, and we needed, a payoff for that, and we didn't get it in time. So that'll close next week. I think we have at least 2 to close next week, maybe 3. I honestly, this is part of me not being as in touch with things as I normally am. But yeah, I can look at my, yeah, we have 2 set to close next week. So that's good. One on the 15th, one on the 18th. That's next week. Well, the 15th was pushed. That was Friday. So I think we have 2 on the 18th now. So we should close 2 on Monday. Looking at my wall
Nice.
count. Yeah. So that's all good as far as those base KPIs. I won't go into the micro because I don't really have that at my fingertips right now, but we've ramped up our offers. We were averaging about 30 offers per week. Now we're up to 40 or 50 offers. And then, we were averaging like 40 to 50 leads a week. And now we're pushing that towards, 60, 70, 80 leads per week. So that's why we're seeing more with the contracts and solds. And
Yeah.
that's through SMS. And then we have 2 cold callers where we were doing one. We hired an in-house cold caller, and we have still a call service, Call Geeks, that Jasper and I both mentioned before. We're not affiliated, but they've been, I think, the one we both had the best experience with out of Call Geeks and Rapid Assistance. And there's one other one you've tried, right? Well, you've tried more than one other service.
Yeah. I try a few.
Yeah. So anyway, we both found that Call Geeks, of the ones we've tried, has given us the best results if you're going to hire a calling service, if we're just talking about tools and stuff. But then we decided we wanted to do an in-house caller so that we could really groom them. We could really tailor the intake of leads. We'd have a person in-house who's more invested in generating leads for us because they have the possibility to grow with the company. And person we hired is highly qualified too. They really understand real estate and acquisitions, and so they're doing a great job of, talking about the 4 pillars before the leads come into our closers, our lead managers. So
Hmm.
it's been a really good development, and that person has been getting us, an average of 2 leads per day, which I think that'll bump up. She's only been with us a couple of weeks, and she's still getting the hang of things. And we got to make sure she's getting quality lists too, which,
Yeah.
is always a thing, trying to figure out which lists are the best quality.
Yeah.
So let me see if I got anything else here for business. So yeah, we had another one is on the story side of things that I think people will be interested in, because I think it's kind of universal that anybody who's dealing with wholesaling is dealing with ghosting sellers. So we had a memorandum this week that actually we got a call from the seller, which is great because we've talked about this multiple times, but memorandums don't always work. We filed a memorandum on this property, and we were set to make, it was a vacant, 3 side-by-side vacant lots, and we were going to make 13,000 in profit. Uh, with our buyer that we had lined up, we were ready to close. The buyer was ready to wire in their funds. We had all the closing documents, and then the seller ghosted on us. And so then they ghosted, and we did the dance for a while where we called, texted, emailed over and over. We sent them the nasty letter. And eventually, I think the nasty letter, it's not a mean letter, but it's just like, hey, if you don't respond to us, we might have to take legal action. And then I think they came back on board and then gave us a big sob story about, the health or this or that and blah blah blah. And then could we sell you 2 instead of 3 because we have a kid who wants one of the lots. Da, da, da. And so then our buyers bailed because they were like, no, we want all 3. And so that cost us $13,000 plus having to pay the attorney the preliminary title search and the seller documents that we had them
Hmm.
generate. And so then anyway, this past week the seller reached out to my acquisitions person, and then he reached out to me, and he called me like 5 times in one day. And I hate to say this, but I took a little bit of pleasure in ignoring his calls for a day
Yeah.
after being ghosted by him, and I was just like, well, you can have a little taste of your own medicine.
Yeah.
So I ignored his calls for a day. He called and texted me like 5 or 6 times in a day. And then I was like, okay, I'm not going to let this guy dangle. I'm not going to be a jerk. So I called him back. I'm calling him within 24 hours, called him the next day and talked to him. And he gave me a big sob story about how he really needed the loan released and how it would be a blessing for him and his wife. And they could really use the money and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, hey, I'm really sorry to hear that stuff about your health and, how you need the money. And, I just want you to understand that this cost my business $13,000. And I run a small business and I have people who depend on me and I have family and, like this is not. And so we went back and forth with that a little bit. And I told him I'd check with my team. And then I just composed an email to him and I was just like, well, this is what it cost my business and we'd like to recoup this money. So can you pay this out of your closing with the new buyer? And, I just sent that off. So I don't know
Yeah.
how he'll respond to that. I'll probably follow up with him next week and say, I just sent you a letter. Just want to make sure you got it. And my expectation is that we'll negotiate that down and he'll give us something, not the whole amount, but I'm not telling him that right now, just
Yeah.
like asking for the full amount. And then he can say, well, we can't possibly pay that. And then I can say, well, what can you pay? But, so anyway, I guess the good news is that memorandums do work some of the time, but the experience that both Jasper and I have had is that they don't work in all counties and they don't work all the time. Some lawyers, for some reason, ignore them, and then sometimes, in this case, the new buyer for this guy's lot, brought it to his attention that there was a memorandum. So, and we had this experience before where we filed the memorandum and the county changed us to the owner on the county records. Have you seen this?
Yeah. I've had that happen to me. Yeah.
Yeah, so then
Yeah.
then they pull up the property record and it shows my company as the owner of the property and all we have is a memorandum. So I think
Yeah.
that's what this buyer did is he was doing his preliminary, like exploration on the property and then he saw my company as the owner and he reached out to the guy and the guy's like, "What?" And so then he freaked out and called me. But so I guess it depends on which county, but some counties apparently treat it as a lien or treat you as or file it in a way that makes you look like the owner, and that pretty much blocks a sale. Or
That's
I don't.
good.
I mean, I
I
don't
mean,
know if
that's
they
a
take
good
it to
thing.
the attorney. If the attorney goes, "Oh no, that's a bunch of BS. We can get that gone and just close anyway."
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting to see how it pans out. But
Definitely.
I had one other one like that, and then the guy ended up paying us some money for our expenses, and I didn't rake him over the coals for money because he thought he was going to get some crazy price for the lot that I knew was not even close to what he was actually going to get for the lot. So I was like, okay, just pay us
Yeah.
our expenses and you good luck with that, you know. And I knew the lot was going to sell for like 10 or 15 and thought he was going to get 30 or 40. So I was like, okay,
Yeah.
you go. But we'll take our, whatever $500 we had to pay the attorney. So anyway, that's kind of a victory and just an interesting story. I hope for people who have ghosted sellers and are wondering about filing memorandum of contract.
Uh-huh.
And then for tools, REI Sift is something we've onboarded. Have you explored that at all, Jasper? REI Sift?
No, I haven't. I haven't used it. I mean, I've tried it in the past, but I never dove into it.
Yeah, it's a list stacking platform, and we're using it to stack all of the lists we've ever pulled. So now we have like 500,000 listings in REI Sift, and we're able to filter them and stack lists and see who we've contacted and try and track like how we're doing by county and all these things. So I'm not very hands on with it. My operations guy is, but I think it's going to be really helpful in us really dialing in our marketing and targeting areas where we're doing better and just prioritizing which lists and which areas and campaigns to reproduce and reuse.
Yeah.
And it'll save us money on list pulling. It'll save us money on skip tracing. And the interface is very clean. And again, I'm not, we're not getting anything from this. It's a tool I'm trying out, but the interface is really nice. It's more up to date than, for example, Podio is, or PropStream, or some of these that have sort of an older UI. It's more like Jasper Investor Base is, where it's just a very clean, user-friendly interface. And
Yeah.
and it also functions as a CRM. It's got a lot of CRM functions within it. So you could actually use, if you were starting out or you don't have a CRM yet, you could use REI Sift as your CRM. It's got a lot of features that CRMs have. And we're not going to use it that way, but it seems to be a really nice UI so far from what I've seen of it.
That's
So
awesome.
that's my initial reactions on REI Sift, which is a tool for list stacking. And then I created a little tool, a habit tracking tool that I share with you, Jasper. It's been really helpful for me just to have a card on my fridge with magnets that I move from left to right for small habits that I want to track. And
Uh-huh.
I think I'll do a little video, like a little YouTube short or TikTok or something, and put that out. But just find it really helpful that I have small habits that I want to do every day. Like I'm rehabbing a shoulder and a tennis elbow, and I want to foam roll and do yoga every day, even if I do 5 minutes of yoga or 5 minutes of
Yeah.
3 minutes of foam rolling, or things like that. So I just I've got a dry erase thing with a card on my fridge with magnetic pins that I can move back and forth. And so that's been a really helpful tool for me. And I think I could use it for business as well. Like I have read books on my habit tracker. So it's just reminding me to read a book every day. And even if it's the end of the day and I haven't read any pages of a physical book, I can be like, hey, if I read 3 pages of a book right now, I still win. And I can move that thing from left to right. And then you get the dopamine hit of like, I did this, and
Yeah.
then you get the consciousness building of, I'm a person who reads every day. Boom, I did that. So I just want to recommend tools like that for people, because it's really I think it's empowering for me to continue to build habits and to build confidence in myself that I will do the things that I want to do that I know are healthy for me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and that's all I got for business. That's my check-in. So thanks for listening.
Sweet. Yeah, I'm excited that memorandum worked for you. I hope that turns into a payday.
Yeah, me too. That'll be only the second one if we get a payday on it out of 4 years of filing memorandums. But
Yeah.
hey, that's
That's
better
better
than none.
than, yeah, better than zero.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Getting a lot of contracts and selling deals and everything. I love it.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Like, again, I don't want to be negative, but it feels like I knew that I needed to do this ramp up in March, and then I got it done in October. So, but I think if there's a lesson, if we're just I'll dive into it just for a brief minute or two. A lesson for me in it is, like, I gave it away. I gave away I what I did was I hired somebody to hire my acquisitions person. I went to a service and I said, okay, I'm going to hire you to bring me an acquisitions closer. And
Yeah.
I put my faith in that, and I put some money into it. And I was like, this is going to be great. I'm taking a step away from doing the hiring and all this stuff, and I'm going to get somebody else to bring me an acquisitions closer. And then it didn't work out. And I didn't recognize and pivot quickly enough, I think, is my piece there. Is like, I kept going, no, that person doesn't work for me. That person doesn't work for me. And then I vetoed like 3 or 4 or 5 people that this agency gave to me. And I was like, no, I know I can do much better than that if I hire myself and higher quality for less price. And so then I let it be in a limbo space for a period of months instead of quickly pivoting and going, it's the sunk cost issue that I think a lot of us have, where, oh, I spent, I gave these guys whatever I gave them. I can't remember what it was. It was like 2,000 or 2,500 up front to get this person for me. And so I was
Hmm.
like, oh, I've already spent money on this, and these guys are good, and they know what they're doing. So I should. And then when it got into limbo state, I didn't quickly recognize and pivot that, hey, this is an important thing for me to do to ramp the business up to where I need it to be. So I went from March till, September in a limbo state, or
Hmm.
maybe I went from March, April, May, right? And then I finally went, oh, this isn't going to work. These guys aren't going to get me the person I need. And then May, June, July, August, for months, I just
Yeah.
went along with my business the way it was at the beginning of the year instead of going, oh, I need to cut my losses here, remember how important this is, and take a different tack on getting it done. And then
Yeah.
finally, it took me hiring an operations guy. And I think that goes back to me being too in the business and doing too much day to day to be able to pull my head up and go, oh, this was an important thing that I recognized early in the year that slipped through the cracks because I was too busy responding to emails and calling sellers who were ghosted or helping with disposition or whatever I was doing to go, this is the most important thing. And so then it took from March to October to actually implement it. And that
Yeah.
it probably cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars over the year, honestly. I really to roll up my sleeves and dig into like what I'm doing this last couple of weeks with everything in place that I knew I needed to do. And I took that and retroactively put it from whatever, even if I gave it May, right? If I March to May, and I said, if I was doing from May to October, what I'm doing now, what would my revenue be? It would be
Mhm.
hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? That I missed out on because
Yeah.
I got caught up in sunk cost, and then I was working in my business instead of on my business. So those
Mhm.
are lessons. Hopefully that makes sense for anybody listening. So
Yeah, definitely.
thanks for bringing that out. And I'm in with that. Let's rotate over to checking in on your business, Jasper.
All right. Well, we definitely had an active week this week. We let's see, one, two, I guess we only sold two, but we got two reductions. So yeah,
Nice.
that's almost like selling another deal when you're able to get a price reduction. So
Yeah.
yeah, we sold two this week, got two reductions to be able to sell those deals. So that's a victory. And then we closed one and we got one contract. So that's the kind of overview of the week.
That
And
was a good week.
then yeah, and then to dive into it a bit more, the one that we sold, or one of the ones we sold was this property that I bought and I listed on the market and just horrible. And so I ended up just selling it to New Western with my tail between my legs. So
Uh,
yeah, so big fail on that one. And second time this year that I failed on that. So
you make a
um
profit?
yeah, I mean if they sell it and I think he's optimistic that they'll sell it. But in this scenario, like I didn't, have to, but I kind of had to go ahead and buy this property because um, I had threatened with a specific performance. And it's like, if he came back around to the table and he's like, I'm ready to close. And I'm like, oh, wait, well, give me a couple weeks so I can wholesale it. And, it's not going to work. So that's
Yeah.
the reason I bought it. But at the same time, I had already done my research on my end and contacted a bunch of different realtors because I didn't want just one opinion. And so I literally got five opinions and it ranged from 170,000 to one realtor said like 210,000. I was like, you're immediately not getting my business. So that's just ridiculous. So about 160 to 210 was the range that these realtors gave me. So quite a big range. And in my opinion, it was about 160, 170. I'm always erring on that side of things. And so, anyways, this realtor that I ended up going with, he actually told me, he was like, I think it's worth like 180, but for the quick, because I was like, no, dude, like just give me what Matt Larson always says, give me the 2 week sale price. Like I want this thing sold quickly. I
Yeah.
want it closed. And he was like, okay, well, 2 week sale price, I recommend we list at 170. And I was like, okay. And so we listed at 170 and just like absolutely nothing. And so like I went against kind of the grain on what I was thinking to do because I was just gonna flat fee list it and handle it myself. And I was like, no, you know what? Let's do the who not how thing. Like, let me hire a realtor, like take this off my plate entirely. And I just wanted to forget about this entirely and have a realtor tell me like, okay, it's sold. Okay, it's closed. Like I do nothing. That's the point of hiring a
Yeah.
realtor, in my opinion. Because we can sell our deals ourselves. We don't need a realtor. But anyways, that's what I wanted to do and just completely crashed and burned. And so then this week, I just told him, we've been on the market for I think about a month now, and just like absolutely nothing. And I was like, dude, can we just unlist? And thankfully, he was a nice guy, and he didn't like charge me anything for that, so that was really sweet, and I appreciate that. But at the same time, I was very disappointed in how it kind of unwound itself. But anyways, New Western was still ready to go, and we contracted with them. And my guy there told me that he thinks it's going to be sold by Monday, so we'll see. But yeah, that was that. So that was the second time this year where I bought one, and I thought it was going to be like a good deal, and it wasn't. So
So
um,
it's not a bad. You're still going to make 5 figures, right?
yeah, it's not a bad deal, but I took it down with the sense that I was like, okay, this is like a $50,000 profit deal. And that's the
Yeah.
only reason that I was ready to take
Right.
it down, because my last one was a slim deal and I still bought it. And I was like, okay, I'm not doing that again. So now I want 50,000 or more. And so that was my idea.
Yeah.
And so now we're under contract with New Western. Hopefully we'll make 20 on it, which is still great. But after, holding
Yeah.
costs and everything, it'll be less than that, with the utilities and stuff. And we did a few minor fix ups and stuff too. But anyways, my point is that I would have happily taken 20,000 in 2 weeks because that's what New Western offered me. And I thought, okay, I'll put it on the market. We'll close in like 45 days and I'll get 50,000. Yes, it's worth it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But instead, I sat on the market for 30 days and now I'm getting 20,000. Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
now I'm getting 20,000 in 60 days and it's 100% my fault. So I don't know what the lesson is there. I guess that's kind of like a rant session. But I guess I did want to test the market and see how it is. The market is extremely slow right now. And
Hmm.
I think part of that is because we listed a few weeks before the election, and almost everyone was just like, I'm not going to do anything with my life until the election's over. It's just how people live sometimes. And so I noticed that after the election was over, we got a bunch of showings in that rest of that week because I guess everyone can move on with their lives, but still didn't get any offers. And so that was interesting. And this is like a clean property. It's not like a terrible property. And so I was expecting like an owner occupant live-in type person to buy it and kind of fix it up while they're living there. But that just wasn't the case. And especially I thought like the 170 price point, that's an affordable type home.
Yeah.
It's not like I said, it's not super crappy. It's like 1965, so it's not too old. Brick house, one level. Like I thought I had everything going for it, but apparently not.
New
So
Western's going to make 20K off that.
I'm sure they will. And so that's what's so interesting to me, though. I guess that's the lesson here is just like even the MLS and even these
Your buyer
realtors,
list.
yeah,
Yeah.
even these realtors and even being on the public market is still not as good as working with, and I don't want to give them a huge plug, but New Western is very good at what they do. And I've noticed this year especially, I'm sure they're making a bunch of money this year because a lot of wholesalers are struggling selling their deals, including myself. And these guys are crushing it. And so they're somehow finding these people and they're also creating urgency with their buyers in a market where a lot of buyers are sitting on their hands. New Western is somehow creating urgency with these buyers to get these deals done quickly. Like, for example, we have, I don't know how many, we have a lot in escrow with New Western right now. And they're all, closing quickly and they're our highest offer on all these deals. And so it's really interesting to see that. Um, and yeah, I mean, I guess there's just a huge plug for them, but it is very interesting to see it. So, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it is a route you can go if you're a wholesaler and you are stuck on a deal. You can sell it to them, and they just
yeah,
they're the biggest wholesaler in America, right? They have all the buyers, and that's the biggest thing they do is build their buyer list. And so it's also an example or a testament to building your buyer list and being really diligent about that.
yeah,
Whether you're a solo operator or whether you have a VA who can, reach out and add buyers every day, it makes a difference. The bigger you can build your buyer list and the better quality buyers you can have, the more you're going to sell your deals.
yeah. And that's a great point right there. Maybe that's the lesson in all of this is that for anyone who's listening, especially if you're newer, maybe that's your niche. And maybe you don't even go after sellers. Maybe you only go after buyers and you become just a one man New Western in your specific market. And you could just have all the connections with all the best buyers and you could just offer that as a service to all the local wholesalers because I'm sure that's how they started. And now they're, like you said, the biggest wholesaler in the country. So yeah, it's definitely, testament to focusing on only one thing. They only focus on one thing. They don't do acquisitions. They don't do marketing. They don't do anything. All they do is reach out to wholesalers. So I guess they do two things. They reach out to wholesalers to get those contacts and to get the deals coming in. And then all the rest of the time is spent reaching out to buyers. So
Yeah.
they're very focused, sure. But yeah, so that was a long-winded story about my deal on the market, but hopefully we'll get
No,
to.
I think it's a good one. I think it's a good story. And I think it's important to recognize what you said. Like, when you said you were taking that down a few weeks ago, whenever it was, part of your motivation was to feel the market for yourself,
Yeah,
to
for
really
sure.
understand the market. And so you got to feel that. And I have a similar pain point. We have this house that we took down subject to. I don't want to go long-winded with this, but we've talked about this one before. We took it down subject to, I think, in May, and at that point, Zillow had the Zestimate at like 210 for it,
Yep.
and now the Zestimate is 170 for it. So
Yeah.
we did the same thing you did. We're like, we're gonna go in, we're in this for 150, we're gonna sell it for 180, 190. We're gonna make a shit ton of money. It's gonna be great. And now we're like trying to get 170 out of it,
Yeah.
which is no profit because we've been holding it for 4 months. So
Exactly. Yeah.
we just had an offer for 170 actually, and we turned it down because we decided we wanted to go with an owner finance deal because we're going to make more money in the long run. And making $12,000 on a deal, at this point, because with our
Yeah.
holding costs and everything, it's like it is a sunk cost thing on some level, but it's like if we do an owner finance, we're going to make a six-figure profit on it, or at least a five-figure profit, even if they cash us out early. So
Yeah.
we're just going to be more patient and to hold it for another couple months if we have to. But anyway, the point of the story was you wanted to test the market, feel it for yourself, and you did. And I've had a similar experience where, in May we took down a house that Zillow said was worth 210. Now they're saying it's like 165 or 170. And
Yeah.
Zillow is, whatever people want to say about Zillow, they're pretty accurate these days, you
Yeah.
know.
They are. Yeah.
So it's the market has slowed down a lot, and don't let sellers tell you that their property's worth $1 million. Just wait them out.
Yeah.
If you're a Fisher person, give them a lot of line,
Yeah.
reel back in every once in a while, check back with them. Hey, did you get that offer for $100 million yet? Oh, okay. Well, we're still ready at 40 or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I did say that and I did want to try it out. And now I know, and now it helps me when I'm talking to buyers too, because I actually understand what they're going through. And one of the things I learned too, talking to more buyers lately, more of my buyers on my list, is that what I tried to do is not working anymore, essentially, in the grand scheme of things. And I think in the last 2 years, I really wish I did that more, and I didn't. But what I was trying to do, quote unquote, wholesale type deal, where you buy a property and you list it essentially as is. You're not going to leave a bunch of crap in there, but you're cleaning out the home and you're not fixing it up. You're just listing it as is with a relatively clean home. That doesn't really work anymore. And what I've learned from doing it myself, but talking to buyers, is that you either have to be like a complete flip and it has to be done to the nines. You can't like cheap out on your flips anymore, or you just have to be priced insanely low, if you're doing like as is type deal. And that's just the state of the market, at least where we are right now in North Carolina. I know it's kind of state specific. I'm sure some states are still booming, but right now that's what it seems to be. And talking to my buyers on the flip side, like one of my buddies, he's doing like 20 flips a month. And he was like, yeah, man, like we were doing kind of, not the best work in the past couple of years. And this year we really had to tighten up. Like we have to do top level finishes and really like inspect our properties before we even list them. So the inspector doesn't ding us on all this stuff. And he's like, we really had to just basically tighten up. And even still, buyers are requesting like $5,000 in closing costs on every deal and like all this sort of thing. Like I noticed I did have a couple offers, and these buyers are asking for anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 in concessions, plus offering less than your asking price. And so really, like if they offer you 150 and they want 5,000, it's actually a 145 offer. It's like, what are you even doing? Like that's worse than new effort. And so it's interesting. It's interesting to see the state of the market for sure. But yeah, we'll move on. I just thought it was an interesting conversation.
Yeah,
So
we had to give 3,500 on a buyer on one of our subject twos not long ago.
yeah,
So it's a buyer's market. Yeah.
yeah. But the good news is, in a couple months, I think sellers will start to come to the realization, and we'll start getting a lot of people calling back, like you said. So that's the good news in all this. Is
Yeah.
I think next year especially, sellers are going to kind of see the light, and we're going to start getting some better deals for sure. When people are, because when they're coming back to you, then you have all the leverage. When they're calling you back, like, hey, is that offer still good? And you're like, no, actually, markets went down. Actually, we're at this now. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, it actually gives us more leverage. So I think that'll definitely happen in the next probably 3 to 6 months or so. But yeah, moving on. So I had another deal that we closed this week that we worked on. all the way back in May, we contracted this deal. It was kind of an interesting story because we contracted this deal in May, and after we went under contract, which unfortunately has happened sometimes, after we went under contract, the seller decides to ghost when we're trying to like schedule inspection photos and actual closing. The seller decides to ghost, and so it's like, dude, you're trying to close on your property, and so we're following up with him every week, and didn't get a hold of him for a long time, and then finally got a hold of him. And he's like, yeah, like, can we close on this date? And I'm like, sure. We just want to get inside your property. We still haven't seen it, and so we finally get inside the property, all this stuff, and then he goes again. And so then we're just like, don't really know what's going on. And again, we're just following up weekly. And then I get a call from a broker. And I thought it was because we placed a memo on there, because he was ghosting us. So he did place the memo. And so that's what I thought it was. Turns out this dude, in his procrastination, like, I feel for the seller, the property went in short sale. And so literally in the time we went under contract from May up until this week when we closed it, the property went in short sale. And I feel bad for the seller because we could have closed and not went into short sale at any point during those months, but instead it went to short sale. And I worked with this broker who's awesome, actually. So it was a blessing in disguise for me, but he's going to send me more deals going forward. And so that's what I wanted to share with you and with the podcast, is that I never even have done that before. And this was actually my first time ever doing a short sale. But now I'm going to find short sale brokers and reach out to them and ask them to send me their deals. Because this dude, Adam, he's a great guy. I can send you his contact, but he totally walked me through the process, like everything we had to do. There's a bunch of extra paperwork, extra documents you have to sign because the bank's involved, but he handled all that as the broker and sent me all the documents. So he was awesome. But now that's going to be another lead source for me. And he's like, dude, I'm going to send you all my deals. Like, thanks for making it easy and all this stuff. And I'm going to reach out to more agents like that and hopefully do more of those, because basically I thought it was more different than what it was, but it's pretty much just a regular transaction. And I thought a short sale would be much harder, because the bank is going to make you jump through all these hoops and stuff. And
Yeah.
I did have to sign extra docs, but the closing and everything was exactly the same. And I learned one other thing, because on this one with the bank involved, I thought that I had to actually buy it myself. So that's what we did. We just double closed it. But Adam actually told me that you can assign them. You just have to get the approval from the seller and the bank. And he said typically they don't even care. But they just made him sign like a non-assignment thing or whatever. And so he gave me a call before he signed it. He was like, hey, like, are you going to sign this? And I was like, well, we already set it up for a double close. And he was like, oh, by the way, next time you can do that. And I was like, oh, okay.
So does that mean the seller gets zero? Because the short sale means they're selling for less than what he owes, right?
Yeah, so the seller gets nothing. So
Yeah.
the seller gets nothing, but the reason why sellers do this is
So
because they
he's
don't
on the hook,
foreclose.
or they tell him he's off the hook if he
Yeah.
does the short sale?
Yeah, so he's not foreclosed on. It's not on his credit report, but he gets absolutely nothing. So
They take the property and, yeah, they cover their
Yeah.
butt, but they don't make, all their compound interest.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the bank ends up making less than what they're supposed to make, but they still make somewhat close to that amount. And then the seller gets nothing. So it's kind of sad. And on this deal, for us, it wasn't like a home run, or I would have gave the seller some money as well. But yeah, but it was very
Well,
interesting.
also, when somebody ghosts you over and over and over, you feel less charitable toward them.
A little bit, yeah, and I felt bad for him too, because like I said, I was like, dude, we've been under contract since May. Like, I didn't rat on the seller, like, how did you go into short sale and all this stuff? But I was just thinking to myself, I was like, man, he could have closed with us at any point, and now we're in short sale. The process took, I think it was about 45 days. And so overall, like, I had only heard from about short sales on podcasts and stuff. And I heard that it was just like, maybe I just got lucky, but I heard it was like this big headache. It takes like months and months to close, and like you have to do all this extra stuff. For me, it wasn't really that bad. And I think it's because I had this broker who helped me and handled everything. But
Yeah.
anyways, just wanted to share that because it was pretty straightforward and pretty quick. So that was cool to kind of get that experience, and hopefully I can do some more with this guy in the future. And so yeah, there's that. And then I don't think I updated you on this funny story because we've missed each other a couple weeks. But so I told you about that one deal that I listed on the market that we talked about earlier, and I'll try to wrap this up soon. But
That's good stuff.
but remember that deal that I told you about, the one that I bought, and how, I don't know if I shared this on air or off air, but the seller and the property manager were like pretty rude, I guess, to me, and they were not very pleasant to work with. And so ended up closing that deal, after we threatened specific performance, all that stuff. And then I get a call, and it was I think it was last week or the week before, but I get a call from the property manager. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so I pick it up, and I'm expecting her to, to like get mad at me or something because I listed the property on the market, right? And turns out she's referring me another deal. I was like, wow, that's interesting. And obviously, I'm not too prideful to make money. So, like, of course, I would love to do that. And so, not only did she refer me this other deal, we contracted it immediately because referral leads are so easy. And contracted
Yeah.
immediately, got it sold. We're supposed to close next week, so I'm gonna send her a nice referral fee. And then within that time frame, she referred me another deal, and we're probably gonna lock that up too. And
Wow.
so this, it was just funny to me because it's just like, I don't know what to say about it, but it's just like really funny for me because like here are these people who are just like telling me I'm the worst person and all this stuff. And then it turns out that you're referring me deals, and I love it. Thank you. And so I'm just very grateful for that, but also think it's hilarious because
It is funny. Yeah.
just a month ago they hated me, and now they're referring me deals. So I guess a blessing in disguise, that showed them that we are legitimate people and we did buy the property and stuff. And now, hopefully she'll refer me more and more deals, and I'll be happy to pay her referral fees. So that's exciting. But I
You
just
just
wanted to
give
share
her
that
like
with you.
a flat fee referral?
Um, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know. I wanna get more referral deals because getting this one, they're just so easy to close. Like I think every time I've gotten a referral, I've closed them. I don't think I've ever not closed them. And so in the past, I've given anywhere from 500 to $1,000, but I think I'm gonna pay a lot more than that. And so I'm still thinking about it, how much I'm gonna pay. But I figure like, what's the best way to get more referrals? It's probably to pay your referrals well. And I know like Hermosi talks about that, and my new coaching thing, like he talks about doing affiliate launches and stuff and paying them really well. And so I don't know if 50% is right because we have some costs on our end as well. But I think I want to make it pretty intense to the point where they're like shocked and they're like, oh my God. And then they tell all their friends. That's what I want it to be. Because like if I give someone $500, for most people that are working in real estate, they're already making good money. So $500 is nice. It's a nice steak dinner, or it's a nice something else, but it's not like a game changer. But if I was to give someone like three, four, $5,000, then it might be like, wow, like everyone refer Jasper your deals because he's going to pay you like very well. So I don't know. I'm thinking about that, but open to your feedback on it.
That's great. I mean, that's an awesome turnabout of events. It's very,
Yeah.
very. I I guess I would say like, what does a property manager make, right? Because I don't see property managers as people who are making a ton of money in general. I see them as
Yeah,
somebody,
that's true.
they're making like 10% of rents on properties they do and stuff like that. Um, so they have to have a
Yeah.
big portfolio of properties to be able to make a living. And what's their living that they're making? Are they making, your average? I mean, you could probably Google what does your average property manager make, right? And so then you could find out like what's impactful money for that person. It's kind of like when you want to pay a VA in another country a lot of money, and
Exactly. Yeah.
but then you have to go, what's a lot of money in the Philippines or in Pakistan, right? Because for us, we might go like, well, I want to pay that person $10 an hour, and for them, that's like $4 an hour would have been an amazing pay for them, right?
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so you don't want to be stingy, but you also don't want to be like giving away the farm when you don't have to. So
No, that's
that's,
true. Yeah.
like if that person's making 50K a year, that means they're making $4,000 a month before taxes. If you give that person $2,000 for a deal, you're giving them half a month's salary,
Yeah.
right? So that's just like throwing out numbers off the top of my head, but it's like you
No, that's a
said,
good point. Yeah.
if it's a real estate agent at a high level, then like you said, a real estate agent at a high level, they're making, a six-figure income. But what percentage of real estate agents are making a six-figure income? Because I bet it's 5% or less,
Yeah,
right?
probably.
And the
Yeah.
rest of them are struggling to make deals and they have second jobs and they're part-time real estate agents and all this stuff. So even a real estate agent, probably if you give them a grand or 2 grand or whatever, they're probably happy. But I know what you're saying. You want it to be impactful and you want it to be memorable and you want to blast any other potential competition out of the water. Like you don't want, if there are other people that are in your same pool that might pay them 500 or 1,000 for a referral, you don't want to be competing with them. But,
Yeah.
I would say probably 2 to 2,500 would be a big bump for that person to really
Yeah.
blow them out of the water.
Oh, that's
And
great feedback. Yeah.
that's just the way I think about it. Because I've done that with, like I said, with VAs. It's like, well, I'd really like to take care of this person, but taking care, taking care of that person. I always try and get people to name a number for me, like, hey, what would be a really good salary for you? And they might say something that's like way below what I would have paid them happily. So
Yeah.
um, not trying to be a jerk about it, but also like running a business, you want to keep as much money on your side of the fence as you can. That's how you grow, right? So
No, it's great feedback. Yeah. And it's
yeah,
great, because we think about that all the time with our virtual assistants, me and you both. Because like if you give someone a crazy, crazy bonus, then they're just like, whoa, like sometimes it might even like mess things up because then they might, but if you give them like just a competitive bonus or yeah, something that makes a difference for them. So yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, it's like you said, I want to be like the number one person for her, where it's like when she gets a lead, she immediately thinks of me, which it seems like
right.
I guess she did just because I followed through on my word and closed on that property. That's what I guess that kind of helped me as well. So yeah.
And you can get cagey about it. You can actually ask her, like, what do you normally get for a referral bonus?
Yeah, well,
And
she told me when she referred me to lead, she was like, don't forget about me, like send me a Ruth Chris gift card or something. I was like, oh well, I'll do better than that. That's what I told
Ruth
her.
Chris, so she has low expectations.
Yeah,
So
like 250 bucks. Yeah,
2 grand would be ridiculous, right? So it
yeah,
might be that a grand is way beyond her expectations.
yeah,
If she wants a Ruth Chris gift card, that's
yeah,
for her, that might mean $100, right?
yeah. I guess so. Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying is don't like, because what's going to happen is if you're going to start paying, whatever you're saying, 50%, that's crazy, right?
Well, I'm just thinking about it, though, because these are free deals for us. It's like we spend a lot of
Oh
money
yeah,
on,
I know. Yeah, that's
and
true.
so it's like And so it's like for my average, the first thing I thought about was like, well, I could pay them what it cost me to get a deal, right? Because then it's still I'm still the same as just getting a deal. But then I was like, well, I want to like make a little bit of a margin, so I could pay them like half of what it cost me to get a deal. And so like I'm just thinking about it, but I do want to come up with something, and just like yeah, just use that going forward as like social proof. Like when I pay her, maybe I can get like a review from her or something, so I could try to get more referrals in the future. But
Yeah.
yeah, but either way, that's exciting. So I just want to share that story with you because that was funny.
Yeah, it's a great story. It's awesome.
Yeah, but I think that's it. I went long enough today, so I just want to share a few things with you, a few stories.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
But yeah, so yeah, I guess that's it then. Do you have any quotes or anything that you want to share as we wrap up?
Oh, no, I don't. I had one in my head earlier this morning, but I don't it bounced out of my head because we're talking about this other stuff. Uh, but we had that one that we talked about earlier offline about if a man has one enemy, he will meet him everywhere, which I think is from one of the Stoics, but
I like
it
that a
just
lot.
means
Yeah.
yeah, it just means you can't run from whatever your issues or challenges are because they're really within you that you're projecting outward. So, like whenever you can deal with something head on in any area of your life, it's usually if you don't deal with it, it's going to rear up in another area of your life, right?
Hmm.
So that's what we were talking about. It's just like deal with things head on as much as possible because if you run from that enemy in this part of your life, it's going to just show up in another part of your life. It's just a metaphor.
Definitely. Yeah.
I don't know if that's inspirational, but it's a thought that we were talking about at the top of the meeting before we logged on.
No, I like it a lot. I
All
think,
right.
yeah, I think that's it. I was just looking to see if I have any quotes to share, but yeah, I think we can wrap it up there. That's a good thing to end on. So, anyone who listened today, thank you, and feel free to drop a comment on what you want us to touch on in the future. And yeah, you can find us both on social media by our names, and we will see you on the next one. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.